A single dad saved a woman on a plane, but what she whispered made him question everything. Could one act of kindness unravel a hidden past? The rain hadn't stopped for hours. Jonas Reed gripped the steering wheel, squinting through the windshield of his rusted pickup as wipers squeaked a hopeless rhythm. Chicago nights were never kind, but this one felt especially cruel. Wet, cold, and bone-deep tired. He just wanted to get home, peel off his damp boots, and listen to the soft breathing of the little girl who had somehow become his entire world. Then he saw it. A cardboard box, half collapsed, soaked through, left beside a dumpster behind St. Mary's Church. It shivered. No, not the box. Something inside it moved. Jonas slammed on the brakes. For a second, he just sat there, the engine ticking in the rain silence, heart punching his ribs. Then instinct kicked in. He bolted from the truck, boots splashing into cold puddles, sprinting toward the alleyway. He crouched beside the box, breath held. A sound, a whimper. Hands shaking. He peeled back the soaked flaps and stopped breathing. Inside, wrapped in a threadbare towel, lay a newborn, skin mottled, lips faintly blue, eyes closed, and then she moved. A tiny fist curled, her mouth opened, searching for air or warmth or something. Oh, God! Jonas's voice cracked. Hey, I got you. He pulled off his jacket, tucked her into it, and pressed her trembling body to his chest. She was ice, so small, so fragile. Then he saw it next to her head, stuffed into the towel, an old teddy bear missing an eye, and a folded note. Rain blurred the ink, but the words still cut through like a knife. Please take care of her. She deserves better. I'm sorry. Jonas stood frozen, blinking rain and tears. A million questions screamed in his mind. Who? Why? Why here? But none of them mattered. She whimpered again, and that was all it took. I got you now, he whispered, voice steadying. I got you, and I'm not letting go. Later that night, in the warmth of his cluttered garage-turned-living space, Jonas sat in an old rocking chair, cradling the baby girl in his arms. The rain still tapped on the roof, but inside it was quiet, like the world had paused to listen. He had cleaned her, fed her with a makeshift bottle, and wrapped her in his only clean flannel shirt. The old teddy bear now sat on the chair's armrest as if guarding them both. She needs a name, he muttered. The baby stirred, a soft hiccup escaping her lips. Leah, he whispered. Short, simple, means bearer of good news. I think that sounds okay to you? She blinked once, then fell asleep against his chest. He smiled for the first time in weeks. I guess it's decided. The next morning, he stood before a stern-looking social worker with Leah in a worn carrier, his jaw clenched. You found her where? The woman asked, typing rapidly on her tablet. Behind St. Mary's in the rain. And you didn't call 911. I did. They came, but she needed warmth. She needed now. You think waiting 20 minutes on hold while she froze would have helped? The woman looked up, annoyed but unsure. We'll need to place her into the proper system. There are procedures. Jonas shook his head. She's not going into the system. That's not your choice, Mr. Reed. His voice lowered. I'm not asking for your permission. There was steel in his gaze that made the woman pause. 3 weeks later, after an unexpected string of court visits, background checks, and one tearful testimony from a nurse at St. Mary's, Jonas walked out with temporary guardianship. You know, this is insane, right? His friend Caleb, a retired school teacher, told him. You can barely afford your rent, and now you've got diapers, formula, I know. Jonas stared down at Leah in the carrier. But when I looked into her eyes, I didn't see an accident. I saw a second chance. 7 years passed. Jonas still lived in the converted garage, now bursting with toys, crayon drawings, and half-fixed engine parts. He fixed cars by day, repaired microwaves and furnaces at night, and made sure Leah always had enough food, books, and bedtime stories. She had grown into a bright-eyed girl with wild curls and a love for painting stars on their ceiling with glow-in-the-dark markers. Daddy, she said one evening, tapping his shoulder while he worked on a busted alternator. Do you think I came from the moon? He blinked. The moon? Well, I don't look like you. Maybe I'm a moon child like in that story you told me. He wiped his hands, crouched beside her, and kissed her forehead. You came from someplace even brighter. Where my heart? She giggled, wrapping her arms around his neck. One rainy Thursday, a package arrived at their door. No return address, just a plain brown box sealed tightly. Inside, a book. Old cloth-bound with a faint lavender scent. The Lost Constellation, it read. Leah gasped. Daddy, this is the one from my dream. He frowned. You dreamed about this book? The one with the girl who finds her mama by following stars. She flipped it open. A page was marked with a yellow ribbon. Jonas read the underlined sentence aloud. Even lost stars find their constellations again. Something inside him stirred. It felt like someone had just whispered a secret across time. Who sent this? He murmured. Leah shrugged. Maybe the stars. He forced a smile, but his hands trembled slightly as he placed the book down. Outside, the rain began to fall again. But this time, it didn't feel like the end of something. It felt like the beginning. What secret will this mysterious book reveal? The sun broke through the Chicago skyline like a promise. Soft light spilled over the cluttered workbench in Jonas Reed's garage, their home. The smell of burnt toast wafted through the air, mixing with engine oil and orange marmalade. Somewhere beneath the workbench, an old space heater hummed its tired tune, fighting off the lingering bite of winter. Jonas stood over a toaster, screwdriver in hand, brow furrowed in concentration. Behind him, Leah's voice piped up, bright and urgent. Daddy, I found it. The star sticker. She held up a tiny glow-in-the-dark star between her fingers like it was a treasure map. He turned, smiling. That's the one you said disappeared. Yep. It was stuck under Mr. Toaster's belly, she declared, patting the metal appliance he was fixing. Well, maybe he just wanted a little sparkle inside. She giggled, then wandered over to their makeshift constellation wall, a mural of stars and moons hand-painted over the old cinder block wall. She pressed the sticker beside a painted figure labeled Leah's star. Do you think stars remember where they came from? She asked almost too softly. Jonas paused. His hand lingered on the toaster. I think some stars get lost, he said gently. But even lost stars can find their way back home. Leah turned to him, eyes wide, just like the book said. He nodded, uneasy. That book, the one that arrived mysteriously last week, had unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. Not just because it had shown up unannounced or because it was out of print and likely valuable, but because the story knew her. Leah had read it 3 times, already tucked under blankets at night, the old teddy bear by her side like a sentry from the past. That evening, Jonas stepped into the corner store a few blocks away. Leah's grocery list scrolled in crayon on the back of a diner napkin. Chocolate milk, blueberries, glue for very important art project, marshmallows. Not the tiny kind. The shopkeeper, an elderly man named Marvin, handed over the bag with a knowing smirk. Still trying to raise her on pancakes and optimism. Huh? Jonas chuckled. It's the only fuel I can afford. Marvin leaned in. She ever ask where she's from all the time? Jonas said quietly. I tell her the truth. I know she was left in the rain, and I chose her. Marvin gave a slow nod. That kind of love. It ain't blood, but it's thicker than anything I've seen. Back home, Leah was working on her secret project at the kitchen table. Glitter covered every surface, including the cat, whom they didn't own, but who visited daily, and answered only to Captain Butterscotch. Jonas set the groceries down. You building a spaceship or an explosion? Leah grinned, eyes twinkling. Neither. It's a surprise. He ruffled her curls. You know, one day you'll have to tell me all your secrets. She leaned close, whispering like a co-conspirator. Maybe, but only if you tell me yours first. He paused. She didn't know about the letters, about the dreams he had some nights of that night, the box, the rain, of how he sometimes wondered if the mother who left her ever looked back, or if one day someone might come knocking, wanting to take her away. He shook the thought. Deal? Later that night, as Leah slept in her fort of pillows and paper stars, Jonas opened his old dented laptop. He had been trying to track the origin of the book. The lost constellation wasn't available in stores, not online, not in libraries. And yet the copy in their living room looked untouched, almost new. He flipped it open again. Inside the front cover in small, precise handwriting, for the girl who found her way back, and beneath that, C.D. Carrington, his stomach twisted. Carrington. That name rang with wealth and walls, one of the oldest investment dynasties in the world. But what would a billionaire heiress have to do with a little girl in a garage in Chicago? The book's dedication wasn't random. It couldn't be. He stared at the cover again, at the stars on it so similar to the ones Leah painted on their walls. Why now? He whispered. The next morning, a letter arrived. Not email, not text, a real letter, cream-colored envelope, embossed seal, no return address. Jonas opened it with a mechanic's hands, but a father's dread. Inside was a formal letter from a law firm based in London. Subject: Inheritance Notification and Identity Clarification. Miss Leah, last name unknown. The text was cold, clinical. A significant trust had been placed in Leah's name. There were documents requiring verification, and they were requested to appear in person. Jonas stared at the paper unmoving as the clock ticked too loudly. Leah skipped into the kitchen. Daddy, guess what? Captain Butterscotch knocked over my glitter volcano. He didn't answer. She stopped. Daddy. He turned to her, eyes unsure, voice trembling. Sweetheart, he said, holding out the letter. Have you ever wanted to know where you came from? She blinked, then nodded. But only if you come with me. That night, Jonas sat in the dark beside her bed. Do you think stars really find their constellations? He asked aloud. Leah mumbled in her sleep, one hand resting over the old teddy bear's belly. From the hallway, moonlight poured across the floor like a path waiting to be followed. And in the silence, Jonas Reed made a decision. He would find out who sent the book, who knew about Leah, and why. Not because he wanted answers, but because she deserved truth, even if it changed everything. The plane cut through clouds like a blade through cotton, steady and humming with the quiet murmur of strangers pretending not to exist beside each other. Jonas hated flying, not because of turbulence, but because it gave him too much time to think. Across the aisle, Leah was scribbling in her little notebook, tongue between her lips, completely absorbed. Probably another constellation drawing or a list of things she wanted to ask London. She had a way of approaching the unknown, not with fear, but with wonder. He envied that. I named this one the Wishing Comet, she whispered to him without looking up, because I think something big's about to happen. He chuckled softly. I hope it involves chocolate. She rolled her eyes. Daddy, not everything is about snacks. A gentle laugh came from the row behind them. Jonas turned slightly. The woman in the next row leaned forward just a bit as if she couldn't help herself. She looked elegant, not in a flashy way, more like someone who didn't need to try. Her blazer was crisp, her nails perfectly neutral, but her eyes, those sharp gray eyes, had a heaviness to them, as if they'd stayed up far too many nights with thoughts that never settled. I'm sorry, she said, offering a small smile. She's adorable. I just couldn't help but hear. Leah beamed. I'm Leah. What's your name? The woman hesitated just for a breath. Vivian, she said. Vivian Carrington. Jonas blinked. That name, it rang something faint inside him. From the book? No, couldn't be. He shook it off. Jonas, he said, nodding. And this one's my co-pilot. I'm also the snack captain, Leah added proudly. But Daddy doesn't let me eat marshmallows on planes. Vivian smiled, and something in her expression softened just slightly, like a crack in ice letting in the first ray of spring. Her eyes lingered on Leah longer than expected, as if remembering something. Did you say your name is Leah? She asked, voice suddenly quieter. Jonas's body tensed instinctively. Yes, he said slowly. Why? Vivian blinked, catching herself. It's a lovely name. My mother used to call me that when I was little, short for little light. Leah lit up. That's what Daddy calls me sometimes. Vivian looked like she'd just been punched in the stomach, but only for a moment. She smiled again more cautiously this time and leaned back. Jonas watched her, heart ticking faster. An hour passed. The lights dimmed. Leah had fallen asleep with her head on Jonas's arm, her notebook open to a page filled with stars, each one labeled with names like Hope, Tomorrow, and Mom. Jonas closed his eyes, only for a second. Then a sound, choking, gasping. He opened his eyes instantly. Vivian was gripping the armrest beside her, face pale, breathing ragged. Hey! Hey! Jonas was out of his seat in a flash. She's not breathing right. We need help. A man in a business suit stood nearby, frozen. I'm a doctor, but I don't have my kit. There's nothing I can do at 30,000 feet. Jonas dropped to his knees. Tell me what to do. The doctor hesitated. Check for blockage. Tilt her chin back. If she doesn't respond, you'll have to do compressions. Jonas remembered. Years ago, Elise had taught him the basics in their kitchen using a teddy bear and a pillow. One day, she had said, you might be the only one standing between someone and the edge. He gently tilted Vivian's chin back, tapped her cheek. Vivian, can you hear me? No response. He pressed down once, twice, counted, checked her airway again. She coughed violently and sucked in air like a drowning woman. The cabin erupted in gasps. A flight attendant rushed over. Is she breathing now? Jonas said voice. She needs to stay upright and sip water. No sudden movements. Vivian's hand found his. Not by accident, not in fear, but like someone clinging to something she hadn't realized she'd lost. Later, after the panic had died down and the cabin quieted again, Vivian looked at Jonas with eyes rimmed in gratitude. You didn't hesitate, she whispered. Jonas shrugged. Would you have? She smiled. No, but most people would. She reached into her handbag, pulling out a small bottle of lavender oil, and dabbed it on her wrist. Jonas noticed her hand trembled. Leah stirred half awake. Is the lady okay? Vivian leaned forward. I am now because your dad is a hero. Jonas chuckled. Hardly. I fix broken things. That's my actual job. Vivian's voice dropped low. Then maybe we were meant to meet. Jonas looked at her. There was something in her tone. Not flirtation, not gratitude, something older, like recognition. Before he could ask, Vivian glanced down at Leah's necklace. Her eyes widened just a flicker. Where did she get that? She asked, nodding toward the little star-shaped pendant Leah always wore. Jonas frowned. It was with her when I found her. Why? Vivian didn't answer. Her fingers traced the edge of her seat. Her eyes welled up, but she blinked quickly, recovering. No reason, she said almost inaudibly. It just reminded me of someone. As the plane began its descent, Jonas watched the lights of London glimmer below like constellations scattered across velvet. He should have been thinking about customs or hotels or this mystery letter and what it meant. But all he could think about was the woman seated behind them, Vivian Carrington, who nearly died, who held his hand like a lifeline, and who looked at his daughter as if she were a memory she hadn't dared to believe could still be real. The rain in London was different, more polite somehow. It didn't rage like Chicago storms. It whispered a quiet, constant drizzle that seemed to coat the city in memory. The taxi from Heathrow glided past centuries-old buildings and glowing shop fronts as Jonas stared out, one hand resting protectively on Leah's shoulder. She was pressed to the window, her breath fogging up the glass with wide-eyed wonder. Daddy, she whispered. It's like walking inside a fairy tale. He glanced over and smiled. Well, let's hope there's no dragons. Leah grinned. Only treasure. In the seat beside him, Jonas held the envelope again, still unopened, embossed with a foreign law firm seal and postmarked from London. Its arrival had been the start of all this. He still hadn't told Leah the full truth. Maybe because he didn't understand it himself. The address on the back had led them to a boutique hotel in Mayfair, modest but elegant, with ivy crawling across its old brick facade like nature trying to remember a story. He hadn't expected to see her again. But there in the lobby, Vivian Carrington, standing at the check-in desk in a storm-colored coat, her back straight, hair pulled into a sleek twist as if she hadn't almost collapsed at 30,000 feet the day before. She turned. Their eyes met. No surprise flickered across her face. Instead, a calm recognition, as if she'd been expecting him. "You again," she said softly, offering a faint smile. "We really must stop meeting like this." Jonas raised an eyebrow. "London's a big place. Either this is a strange coincidence or I'm being followed by very fancy ghosts." Leah tugged at his hand. "Is she staying here, too? Maybe she's the treasure." Vivian's smile broke into something warmer. "I suppose I could be, though I don't shine nearly as bright." Jonas looked between them, feeling something strange tug in his chest. "She's the lady you helped on the plane, huh?" Leah asked, staring up at her. Vivian knelt to Leah's level. "Yes, and you were very brave. You held your dad's hand so tight. I think he didn't even feel scared." "I wasn't scared," Leah said. "Seriously. Daddy's always calm, even when he's lying." That made Vivian laugh, a clear, unguarded sound that startled even her. "Would you too," she said, composing herself, "join me for a cup of tea?" Jonas hesitated. He didn't do tea. He didn't do small talk with strangers in foreign cities. But something about her felt unfinished. The lounge was quiet. Velvet chairs, ticking clock, soft jazz. Vivian sat across from them, tea untouched. Jonas sipped coffee instead, eyes watchful. "I imagine you're wondering how I ended up here," she said finally. "Let's just say the timing is uncanny," Jonas replied. "Unless you routinely fly across the Atlantic to bump into exhausted single dads." "I don't," she said, lips twitching. "And I didn't follow you. This was my destination before the plane ever took off." "Must be fate then." Vivian looked at Leah, then back at Jonas. Her expression shifted. "Or something older than fate." Jonas frowned. "What do you mean?" She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small worn book, leather-bound, familiar. His chest tightened. It was that book, the same edition Leah carried everywhere. "Stardust Songs for Little Souls. My father read it to me when I was Leah's age," Vivian said. "Every night until he didn't come home anymore." Jonas said nothing, watching her carefully. "I thought I'd forgotten it," she continued, "until I saw her on the plane. That necklace, her eyes, the way she said my name," her voice cracked slightly. "That book was published by a private press. Only a few hundred copies were ever made. I haven't seen another in 20 years until yesterday." Leah whispered, "This is getting like a mystery movie." Vivian looked at her with something unnameable in her gaze. "How old are you, sweetheart?" 11, where were you born?" Jonas cut in. "We don't know for sure. I found her abandoned. No papers, no records, just her and that book and that necklace." Vivian's hand trembled as she reached into her purse. She pulled out a photo, folded, creased. She slid it across the table. Jonas unfolded it. A younger Vivian, eyes full of uncertainty, holding a newborn wrapped in a pink blanket. Around the infant's neck, a tiny star pendant. His heart stopped. "No," he whispered. "This can't be." "It is," Vivian said. "That's my daughter." Leah tilted her head. "But I don't have a mom." Vivian blinked hard. "You do. You always have. I wasn't strong enough to be her then." Jonas stood slowly. "Are you saying you abandoned her?" I didn't leave her to die, Vivian said quickly. I left her in the safest place I could think of, a church with a note, and then I left the country. I was 19, scared, controlled by my father. Everything about my life felt like it belonged to someone else. Jonas clenched his jaw. You left a baby in winter. I know. Her voice cracked again. And I've hated myself every day since. Silence stretched. Leah looked back and forth, confused. Daddy. Jonas knelt beside her. It's okay, honey. This is a lot. Vivian reached out, but stopped herself. Her fingers curled midair like they were remembering how to hold. I didn't come here to take her from you, she said. I just wanted to know if she was okay and maybe if she could know me. Jonas looked up at her. You waited 7 years to ask that? I was broken, she said, and afraid that I wasn't allowed to be forgiven. He studied her. She didn't look like someone who ran. She looked like someone who had been running from herself. As they stood to leave, Vivian looked down at Leah again. Can I give you something? Leah shrugged. If it's chocolate, yes. Vivian smiled, then handed her a second copy of the book. Maybe we can read it together sometime. Leah took it slowly, then nodded. And for the first time since the plane, Jonas didn't feel the need to ask why this woman made his chest hurt. He already knew. The hotel suite was quiet, save for the gentle hum of the radiator and the ticking of the wall clock that seemed determined to count down something Jonas didn't yet understand. Leah had fallen asleep, curled beside him, her small hand clutching the spine of the second copy of Stardust Songs like it was a treasure map. Jonas sat at the edge of the bed, shoulders hunched, eyes staring at the unopened letter that had led them to London. It still felt like a trapdoor waiting to open under his feet. And yet, it was the meeting with Vivian, the woman who claimed to be Leah's mother, that haunted his thoughts more. He didn't trust her. But more than that, he didn't trust what she made him feel. The knock on the door came softly. Not urgent, not hesitant, just there. Jonas opened it to find a hotel concierge holding a small cream-colored envelope. This came for you, sir, hand-delivered. No name, no return address, just a seal and embossed crescent moon. He opened it slowly. Inside was a single sheet of paper folded in 3. It wasn't typed. It was handwritten. If you're reading this, it means I wasn't brave enough to say it aloud. His eyes froze. It was from Vivian. The letter was raw. She told him about the night she left her baby on the church steps, how her father's voice still echoed in her skull, telling her she was weak, reckless, and that no child would save her from shame. She'd written the letter years ago, but never sent it until now. I was 19. I didn't know who I was yet, and I didn't think I deserved to raise someone so pure. I thought love meant sacrifice. I thought leaving her gave her a better shot. Jonas sat for a long time with the letter in his lap, and then, as if pulled by something unseen, he rose, tucked the note into his coat pocket, and stepped out into the grey London morning. Vivian's penthouse overlooked Hyde Park with floor-to-ceiling windows that caught every trembling ray of sun. Jonas had expected marble gold opulence, but instead the space was spare, almost minimalist, like someone had built a fortress to keep the world out. She answered the door barefoot, wearing jeans and a simple cashmere sweater. No makeup, hair loose. She looked more real than she ever had. I wasn't expecting, she began. He held up the letter. She swallowed. Jonas stepped inside. Silence stretched between them until he spoke. Voice low but steady. You said you didn't come to take her. I didn't. Vivian whispered. Then why reach out now? She walked to the window, arms crossed, because I saw her. And I knew what? That the part of me I thought I'd buried was still alive. That I still had the capacity to love someone and to lose them all over again. He watched her carefully. You don't get to just appear and claim that. I'm not claiming anything. I'm begging you not to hate me. Jonas took a breath, his hands clenched and unclenched. She's my whole world, Vivian. I can see that. And I'm terrified that if she gets close to you, you'll leave again. And this time, she won't recover. Vivian turned to him, eyes glistening. I won't leave, she said quietly. But I understand if you don't believe me. I wouldn't believe me either. A beat passed. Then Jonas asked the question he hadn't dared until now. Why didn't you ever come back for her? Vivian looked away. Because I was taught that love means obedience. That family means silence. I let fear dictate my motherhood. And then I convinced myself it was too late. That if I showed up, all I'd bring was pain. She paused, but seeing her Jonas, something in me woke up. And now I can't go back to sleep. He said nothing, but his gaze softened just enough to let her continue. I want to earn her trust, not force it. I want to be someone she chooses to love, not someone who demands it because of blood. Jonas finally spoke. You're not just trying to meet your daughter. You're trying to meet yourself again, aren't you? She looked stunned. Yes, she whispered. Exactly. He stepped closer. That's not something you can rush or buy. It's something you show over time. Vivian nodded. So, start with something small, he said. Read her a bedtime story. Make her laugh. Show her you remember what it's like to be 7. She smiled sadly. I don't remember, but maybe she can teach me. As Jonas turned to leave, Vivian called out softly. Why did you even come today? He paused, then looked over his shoulder. Because despite everything, there's something in her eyes that looks like you. And I thought, if she ever hurts, I want to know where it came from. Vivian's voice trembled. Do you hate me? He shook his head. No, but I hate what you let fear steal from both of you. Then he left. Back at the hotel, Leah was awake, sitting cross-legged on the bed, a pencil in hand, furrowing her brow over a half-drawn page. What are you making? Jonas asked, trying to steady his voice. A map? She said. Of us? Of us? Yeah, she held it up. 2 little figures, one tall with scruffy hair, one small with a star necklace standing under a tree. That's me and you. And the tree is London. And that dot over there is the mystery lady. Jonas smiled. She has a name. Leah looked up. Do I know it yet? He crouched beside her. Would you like to? Leah nodded, serious. He took her hand. Her name is Vivian, and she'd really like to read you a story sometime. Leah was quiet for a beat. Then, okay, but only if she does all the voices. The suite at the Connaught was breathtaking. Marble floors, high glass windows, fresh orchids on every table. It looked like something out of a magazine, and Jonas Reed hated every inch of it. He sat stiffly on the plush sofa while Leah danced around the space, her hands pressed against the window panes. It's like we're in a snow globe, she whispered. Vivian stood nearby, arms crossed, trying to appear casual, but her posture betrayed attention Jonas didn't miss. This suite has 2 bedrooms, she offered softly. You both can take the master. We're fine sharing the pull-out, Jonas replied, tone-clipped. We've slept in the back of a truck before. This is 5 stars by comparison. Vivian opened her mouth to say something, then closed it. The distance between them wasn't measured in feet. It was years, secrets, and scars. The first few days passed like polite warfare. Vivian tried to engage Leah with gifts and iPad limited edition art supplies, a plush unicorn that cost more than Jonas made in a week. Leah smiled, then quietly brought the unicorn to Jonas that night and whispered. She means well, but I don't think she knows who my favorite unicorn is. Jonas chuckled softly, it's still Sparkle but forever. Leah grinned, crawling into his arms. One morning, Jonas found Vivian sitting alone in the dining alcove, a plate of untouched toast in front of her. She looked tired, softer somehow, in her silk robe. He hesitated, then joined her with his own mug of burnt hotel coffee. She's polite, Vivian said, eyes still on the toast. She says, thank you for everything, but it feels like I'm on the outside of my own story. Jonas studied her. You can't expect to buy your way into a child's heart. You've got to earn your seat at the table, even if it's plastic and wobbly and smells like syrup. Vivian looked up. And how do you do that? Jonas sipped. Start with pancakes. That night, Leah asked, "Can we have Daddy's funny-faced pancakes tomorrow?" Vivian perked up. What's that? Jonas raised an eyebrow. It's a sacred tradition. Messy, sticky, and requires a non-stick pan that this palace of a sweet doesn't have. Vivian stood abruptly. Give me 10 minutes. To Jonas's surprise, she returned with a grocery bag, flour dust on her blazer, and a fire in her eyes. Where'd you find a pan in Mayfair at 10 o'clock p.m., he asked. She shrugged. When you run a global investment firm, you learn how to acquire things quickly. Besides, the concierge owed me a favor. The next morning, the kitchen filled with laughter and chaos. Leah stood on a stool, apron tied backward, smudges of batter on her cheek. Vivian held the pan awkwardly while Jonas supervised like a grizzled general. More blueberries. Leo shouted. That's a nose, not a wart, Jonas warned. Vivian flipped the pancake. It landed in a perfect arc, earning applause from Leah. See, Jonas said, folding his arms. Told you. Pancakes fix everything. Vivian glanced at him, a flicker of amusement in her eyes, or at least sugar-coated. They sat down to eat together, 3 chairs around a massive marble table that finally felt less like a showroom and more like a home. Leah took a bite, then looked at Vivian. Did you know my favorite jelly is grape? Vivian paused. No, but I'll remember that. Jonas watched the exchange. It wasn't grand. It wasn't dramatic, but it mattered. That night, while Leah dozed off, Jonas stepped out onto the balcony. The London skyline glittered in the distance, cool air brushing his face. A moment later, Vivian joined him. She called me Vivian today, she murmured. Not the lady. He nodded. Progress. She asked if I knew how to braid hair. I don't, but I said I'd learn. A silence settled between them. Then Vivian spoke again, voice quieter. Jonas, do you ever wish you hadn't found her that night? His jaw tightened. Never, even when it meant giving up your career, your marriage, your whole life. He turned to her. She didn't take those things. I gave them up willingly, and I do it again. Vivian exhaled, trembling slightly. I didn't get a choice. My father threatened to cut me off. Said I'd ruined the Carrington name. I was 23, scared, alone. And you signed a piece of paper, Jonas said, not cruel, but with weight. Yes, she swallowed. I signed her away. But not a day passed. I didn't wonder if she'd ever forgive me or if I deserved to be found. Jonas looked at her for a long time. Kids don't care about your resume. They care if you show up again and again, even when it's hard. Vivian blinked, tears glinting. I want to show up, Jonas. I don't know how to undo the past, but I want a chance to write a better next page. He nodded slowly. Then start small. Learn to braid, pack a lunch, miss a board meeting if she has a school play. That's how pages turn. Vivian let out a shaky laugh. Do you ever stop being a mechanic of broken things? Jonas smirked. Only when they stay fixed. Inside, Leah stirred and murmured. Daddy. Jonas turned. Coming, baby. Vivian touched his sleeve lightly. Thank you for not shutting me out. He met her gaze. Just don't give up. That's all I ask. As he disappeared into the suite, Vivian stood alone on the balcony, hands resting on the cold railing. Below, the city buzzed with 1,000 untold stories. But here in this glass box above it all, a new one had begun. Fragile, imperfect, but finally real. Rain tapped softly against the window pane as the London night folded in, wrapping the city in velvet silence. In the corner of the hotel suite, a reading lamp cast a warm pool of light across a blanket fort Leah and Vivian had built together earlier that afternoon. Now nestled inside with her favorite stuffed bear and a mug of warm milk, Leah looked up expectantly. "Will you read me one tonight?" she asked. Vivian hesitated, a leather-bound journal in her lap. She had brought it from New York, a relic from another life, pages filled with stories she once wrote for a baby girl who never heard them. Her voice caught for a moment. "Would it be all right," she asked gently, "if I told you one instead, one I've never shared with anyone?" Leah nodded, hugging her knees. "Is it a scary one?" Vivian smiled faintly. "No, just old. Like a memory pretending to be a dream." She took a breath. "Once upon a time," she began, "in a forest where the stars touched the trees, there lived a little bear named Selkie. She had the softest fur, ears like tiny clouds, and a curious nose that always got her in trouble. One winter night, a terrible storm swept through the woods. When Selkie woke up, her mother was gone. All that was left behind was a ribbon tied to a pine branch, and the sound of wind whispering her name." Leah's eyes widened. "What happened next?" Vivian's voice softened. "Selkie searched everywhere. She asked the moon, the rivers, even the owls. But no one knew where her mother had gone. So Selkie made a map not of places, but of wishes. She carried it in her heart as she wandered. And though the world tried to make her small, she grew anyway. One night she found a hill that looked just like home. She curled up under a sky full of stars and whispered, 'Maybe I'm not lost. Maybe I'm just on my way.'" Silence settled between them. Leah blinked, then stood up suddenly and disappeared into the bedroom. Vivian sat frozen, unsure if she had gone too far. But a minute later, Leah returned, cradling a crumpled sheet of paper, its edges frayed, the colors faded. It was a drawing, a bear, with one ear bent, standing beneath a night sky, looking up at a constellation shaped like a heart. Vivian's breath hitched. "I drew this when I was 5, Leah said, "but I didn't know why. I just saw it in a dream." Vivian reached for the paper, her hands trembling. This is Selly." Leah nodded, "and that," she pointed to a star-shaped pendant drawn on the bear's chest. "I didn't even know what it was when I drew it, but it looks just like my necklace, doesn't it?" Vivian closed her eyes. "You were in me," she whispered. "Even when we were apart, you remembered." Jonas, who had been standing just beyond the door, stepped into the room. He'd heard the story, seen the moment. He'd watched Leah share a part of herself she usually kept guarded. And Vivian meet her, not with guilt, but wonder. Vivian looked up at him, eyes wet, but steady. "I used to write that story when I was pregnant," she said. "It was the only way I knew how to feel close to her. I thought if I ever got the chance, I'd tell it to her myself." Jonas looked from Vivian to Leah, then crouched beside his daughter. "You okay, Bug?" Leah nodded solemnly. She didn't just know the story. She was in it. Vivian's lips trembled. "You were never a mistake, Leah. You were my beginning. I just didn't know how to stay." Leah walked over to her slowly, then climbed into her lap without a word. Vivian held her stiff at first as if unsure she was allowed, then tighter like she was catching up on all the years she'd lost. "I don't want you to leave again," Leah whispered. Vivian looked up at Jonas. "Neither do I." For a long while, no one spoke. The moment was too sacred. Then Jonas cleared his throat. "Well, bedtime, bear. Even brave explorers need sleep." Leah rolled her eyes but smiled. "Can we all sleep in the same room tonight? Like a sleepover?" Vivian blinked. "Are you sure?" Leah took her hand. "I think Selkie would like that." Later that night, the three of them lay sprawled on a makeshift bed of blankets and pillows in the living room. The city lights shimmered through the curtains, casting gentle reflections on the walls like moving constellations. Jonas turned off the lamp. "Stars are out." Leah's voice came sleepily from the middle. "Then maybe we'll find our way." Vivian reached for Jonas's hand. Just for a moment, just to steady herself. "We already are," he murmured back. And in that quiet room above the world, stitched together by grief, stories, and grace, they rested not as strangers, but as something fragile and possibly finally real. The hotel suite was unnaturally quiet. London's rain had softened into a hush, and the city lights blinked gently in the windows, but inside Jonas paced. Leah had a fever, a real one. Skin burning, cheeks flushed, breath shallow. Her small frame was bundled in blankets, curled up on the couch, beads of sweat glistening on her forehead. 102.8, Jonas muttered, checking the thermometer again. I should take her to a clinic. She's asleep now, Vivian said quietly from across the room. And you already called that pediatric service. They said to keep her hydrated and watch for spikes. Jonas ran a hand through his hair. She's never been this sick before. Not like this. She's in good hands, Vivian said gently. Yours? He looked at her, something flickering in his eyes. Vivian rose and walked over, holding a cool cloth. She knelt beside the couch and brushed Leah's hair back, her touch trembling, but tender. Then she glanced at Jonas. You should rest. I'll stay with her. I'm not leaving her. Vivian didn't argue. She just sat down on the floor beside the couch close enough to feel the girl's shallow breaths. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Jonas finally slumped into the armchair, head tilted back, exhaustion pulling at every part of him. His breathing slowed. Vivian looked over at him, her gaze lingering. There was so much she didn't understand about this man. How he'd managed to raise a child with nothing but grit and grace, how his heart had made room for a child that wasn't his. By blood, how he could sit here now, sleepless and afraid, not for himself, but for her, for their daughter. She turned back to Leah, whose tiny hands were curled around the edge of the blanket. Her lips moved faintly in her sleep. I'm here, Vivian whispered. You're safe, sweetheart. And then, as if the room itself leaned in to listen, she said it. I gave you away to protect my name. But he gave up everything to be your father. It wasn't an apology. It was a confession. Raw, honest, bare. She hadn't meant for Jonas to hear it, but he had. His eyes cracked open slowly. He didn't speak, just watched her. Vivian, unaware he was awake, kept whispering. I thought leaving you would stop the world from judging me. But I judged myself every single day since. I see now. The kind of love that matters doesn't hide. It shows up. Even in the rain. Her voice broke. I don't deserve her, but I want to try. Jonas stood. Vivian turned sharply, startled. How long? Long enough, he said, voice low. She stood too, trying to collect herself. Jonas, I didn't mean for it wasn't for me, he said, his gaze steady. It was for her, and that's what makes it real. They stood there, the space between them filled with truths neither had wanted to speak aloud. Jonas finally crossed his arms. You know, for a long time I thought I saved her that night. That maybe I was the hero in her story. You were, Vivian said quietly. You still are. He shook his head. Now, I think maybe she saved me. Vivian's eyes shimmered. I didn't have a plan. I wasn't ready. But the moment she grabbed my finger with that tiny hand, everything else just faded. It's like she knew I needed her. Vivian nodded slowly. So did I. I just didn't have the courage to admit it. Silence returned, heavier this time. But not sharp, just full. She deserves both of us, Jonas finally said. Not halves, not custody agreements, just people who show up every day. Vivian stepped closer. I want that, but only if you do, too. He looked at her, then really looked, not as the powerful CEO, not as the woman who once left a child behind, but as a mother, a person trying to fix what she broke. I don't know what this is, he said honestly. What it looks like, but I'm willing to figure it out. Her lip trembled. So am I. Behind them, Leah stirred. Jonas rushed to her side. Hey, bug, he whispered. Still warm, but better. Leah blinked slowly, eyes glassy. Did I dream, or were you two talking nice? Jonas grinned. Might have happened. Vivian knelt beside them. You were very brave tonight. Leah leaned against Jonas. Did I miss anything? Jonas looked at Vivian. No, he said softly. You were the reason it happened. Leah closed her eyes again, the fever slowly retreating. And as she drifted off, she whispered one word. Home. Jonas didn't move for a long while after that. He just sat there, one arm around the girl who had changed everything, the other resting beside the woman who was finally brave enough to stay. In that fragile flickering moment, no one knew what came next. But for the first time, it didn't feel lonely. The morning light filtered through soft gray clouds, casting a pale glow over the London skyline. Jonas stood at the kitchenette, stirring a second cup of instant coffee that had long gone cold. The silence in the suite wasn't comforting. It was too still, too. He turned toward the living room and frowned. Vivian, he called. No answer. He stepped into the hallway and glanced toward Leah's room. Empty. His stomach sank. He pushed open the door fully. Her bed was made neatly, too neatly, and resting on top of the comforter was something that made his heart stop. A single sheet of drawing paper. He picked it up with trembling hands. It was a child's drawing, Leah's familiar crayon strokes. Two doors stood side by side, one marked with a heart, the other with a question mark. Between them was a small figure, arms stretched wide, eyes looking up at the sky. And beneath it, in uneven childish handwriting, I don't want to be a prize. I want to be a child. Vivian. Jonas shouted, panic rising in his throat. She appeared from the study, face pale. She's not here, he said. She left this. Vivian took the drawing. Her hands shook. Oh my God, she must have left early before either of us woke up. Vivian's mind raced. Security footage, the concierge. We have to, but Jonas was already dialing. 10 minutes later, hotel staff confirmed Leah had been seen exiting through the side lobby just before dawn. She wore her coat, carried her sketchbook, and held a familiar stuffed bear to her chest. She asked where the nearest church was, the concierge explained. Said she was going to talk to the quiet ceiling. I thought it was sweet. Jonas was already halfway out the door. St. Augustine's Chapel was just a 10-minute walk from the hotel, a quaint stone building tucked behind rows of modern offices. Its heavy wooden doors creaked when Jonas pushed them open. Inside, the stained glass filtered soft hues of blue and red across the pews. And there in the front row, sitting with legs tucked beneath her and head bowed over her bear, was Leah. Jonas exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. He walked quietly, not wanting to startle her. Vivian followed a few steps behind, hands clenched. Leah looked up as they approached. Her face was puffy from crying, her voice small. I'm sorry. Jonas knelt down beside her. Bug, why'd you leave? Leah didn't answer right away. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out another drawing. This one showed 3 stick figures standing under a giant heart-shaped constellation. But the heart's breaking, she whispered. Jonas took the picture gently. I thought if I left, she continued, you two would stop fighting about me. Vivian dropped to her knees across from her. Sweetheart, is that what you thought this was? Leah nodded. You're both good, but you keep asking me to choose, and I just want to be little. I don't want to be the reason someone's sad. Jonas felt something twist in his chest. He'd fought so hard to protect her, but he hadn't protected her from this, from guilt, from the pressure of being in the middle of something too heavy for small shoulders to bear. You're not a prize, Leah, he said gently. You're not something to be won. Vivian wiped her eyes. You're not a problem to be solved either. You're a miracle. One I tried to ignore for too long. Leah's lower lip quivered. So what? Now Jonas took her hand. We stop making you choose. We choose each other. Vivian leaned in. Not perfectly, not without mistakes, but we promise no more sides, just one team. Leah looked between them. Even if you live in different places, we'll figure it out, Jonas said. Together. Leah tilted her head. Can I still have bedtime stories? Vivian smiled through her tears. Every night, even if I have to read them over video. Leah leaned forward and threw her arms around Jonas. Then, without hesitation, reached for Vivian, too. And in that pew beneath the quiet ceiling and colored light, their little constellation realigned itself. That night, back at the hotel, Leah was asleep between them on the couch, breathing softly. Vivian broke the silence first. She's more aware than I ever was at that age. Jonas nodded. She always has been. Even when she was a baby, she watched the world like it owed her answers. She deserves parents who give them, Vivian said softly. Jonas looked at her. You're trying. That matters. So are you, she replied. He hesitated, then said, that thing you whispered that night. I heard you. She didn't flinch. I figured you were right. I gave everything up for her, but I got more in return. Vivian nodded slowly. She saved us both, didn't she? Jonas looked over at Leah's peaceful face. No, he said, voice thick. She reminded us who we were, so we could save ourselves. Vivian reached over and gently placed her hand atop his. Neither of them moved it. The night outside was quiet, but inside something was finally healing. He stood at the departure gate, passport in one hand, Leah's stuffed bear in the other. Jonas Reed had always been a man of quiet decisions. Fix the thing that's broken. Don't complicate what can be simple. Protect what matters. And right now everything in him screamed to turn around. But planes don't wait. And life, it seemed, didn't either. Across the terminal glass, London stretched wide and gray beneath a sheet of drizzle. Behind him, the final boarding call for Flight 211 to Chicago echoed over the loudspeakers. Vivian wasn't there. She hadn't come to stop him, and that somehow made it harder. Jonas exhaled, not in frustration, but in resignation. He reached into his coat, pulling out the small envelope Leah had handed him that morning with solemn eyes and a whispered, "Don't open until you're sure." He wasn't sure of anything, but he opened it anyway. Inside was a drawing, a crooked little heart-shaped garage stick figure, Jonas with greasy hands, Vivian in heels holding a phone in one hand and a muffin in the other, and between them, Leah wearing a paper crown and a t-shirt that read, "I'm the boss." Underneath was a note written carefully in her best 7-year-old print. We're a team. You fix cars. She fixes hearts. I need both. Jonas sat down hard. That sentence wasn't just sweet. It was truth. The kind that pierced through confusion, doubt, and fear. It was Leah's way of saying what he hadn't dared to say. He looked up, eyes scanning the terminal. That's when he saw her. Vivian standing just beyond the security checkpoint, no makeup, hair pulled back, her usual armor traded for vulnerability. She hadn't come to stop him. She came to let him choose. Jonas stood, heart pounding. He stepped back through the security line toward her. She didn't move. She just looked at him, eyes searching. I thought you'd be halfway home by now, she said quietly. I almost was. What changed? He handed her the drawing. Her eyes welled as she read it. Vivian looked up. She really sees us, doesn't she? Jonas nodded. She sees who we could be if we stop running from it. Vivian took a shaky breath. So, what are you saying? I'm saying I'm not ready to lose her. And I don't think she should have to lose either of us just because we're afraid. Vivian stepped closer. I never stopped wanting to be her mother. I just forgot how. And I never planned to be her father. Jonas replied, but she made me one anyway. Their eyes locked, raw and unguarded. So what now? She asked. Jonas gave a small lopsided smile. You've got a guest room, don't you? Vivian laughed. The real one this time. Soft and surprised. It has a leaky faucet. Good, he said. Gives me something to fix. A beat passed. Then she whispered. And what about us? He looked down, then back at her. I don't know what we are, but I know where I want to be. Vivian took his hand, and just like that, the terminal disappeared. The noise, the crowds, the ticking clock, all of it faded, replaced by something quieter but infinitely stronger. A promise. 2 weeks later, Jonas was standing in a small garage on the outskirts of West London, turning over the dusty closed sign to read, now open. The garage wasn't fancy. The lift creaked. The coffee machine sputtered, but the tools were familiar, the work honest. He had named it Reed and Daughters, plural, because maybe, just maybe, there'd be more laughter echoing off those concrete walls. One day, Vivian arrived an hour later with Leah skipping at her side, 2 paper bags in hand. Breakfast, she announced. Muffins and juice. Jonas wiped his hands on a rag. Do I even want to ask where the muffins came from? Vivian smirked. Homemade mostly. Leah ran to the corner where her small art desk sat beside the workbench. I'm making a sign, she called. Customers need to know we fix engines and hearts. Vivian leaned against the doorway. She doesn't miss much. Jonas looked at her. Neither do you. Vivian hesitated, then walked over and held out a worn blue book, Leah's favorite fairy tale collection. I thought maybe tonight you could read to her if you're not too tired. He took the book slowly, reverently. I'd like that. She smiled. I'll take tomorrow night. You take tonight. They stood like that for a moment. 2 people not defined by titles or past mistakes, but by choice. Deliberate, difficult, beautiful choice. Jonas nodded. Deal. In the background, Leah hummed as she colored the tune oddly familiar. Jonas realized it was the lullaby he used to sing on cold Chicago nights, now softened by time and memory. Vivian heard it, too. She remembered. She whispered. Of course she did, Jonas said. Some things never leave us. As the sun broke through the clouds above the shop, pouring golden light through the skylight, the 3 of them stood in the soft warmth of something new. Not perfect, not easy, but real, and that was enough. 1 year later, the little garage on the edge of West London had changed, not in size or equipment, but in spirit. There were fresh coats of paint, mismatched flower pots lining the windows, and a chalkboard out front where Leah scribbled a new quote every morning. Today it read, "Stars don't compete. They shine together." Inside, Jonas was under the hood of an old Mini Cooper, grease on his cheek and a calm rhythm in his hands. The radio played soft jazz, the kind he never used to care for, but now found oddly comforting. Dad, Leah called from the office. Can I use your laptop? I need to type my school essay. He chuckled, wiping his hands on a rag. Is it about how amazing your dad is? She appeared in the doorway, hands on her hips. No, it's about what family means. He raised an eyebrow. Even better. Go ahead. Vivian arrived a few minutes later, dressed not in power suits, but in jeans and a navy sweater. Her phone was off because on Fridays it stayed that way until after bedtime. That had been her idea. You'll want to read this, she said softly, holding up a printed sheet. Jonas took it and scanned the title. The Constellation I Belong to by Leah Reed. He sat down on a stool and read line by line, word by word. Some kids are born into their family. I found mine in a cardboard box in a storm. Some kids have parents who look alike. Mine are completely different, but both have warm eyes when I'm scared. My dad fixes cars and tells bad jokes. My mom used to think she had to be perfect. Now she dances in the kitchen, even if she burns the toast. They didn't choose each other first. They chose me and then they chose to forgive. That's the family I belong to. We're not a straight line. We're a constellation. Jonas stopped, eyes misty. Vivian leaned over his shoulder. She wrote every word herself. He looked up. She gets it. Vivian nodded, more than we did. Back then outside, Leah was sketching something in chalk on the pavement. Jonas joined her, crouching beside her. "What are you drawing?" she beamed. "Us, but in the stars." He tilted his head. The constellation had 3 dots connected in a triangle labeled JV and L. Around them, smaller stars glowed. Some labeled hope, second chances, and one that simply read forgiveness. "Didn't know forgiveness was a star," Jonas murmured. Leah shrugged. "I made it one." Vivian knelt down on Leah's other side. "What's the name of our constellation?" Leah paused, tapping the chalk to her lip. Then she smiled. The kind of smile that had no shadows behind it. Second chances. That night they sat around the dinner table in the cozy flat above the garage, chicken pot pie slightly overbaked, laughter echoing off the walls. Leah insisted on reading from her essay again. Jonas teased her. "We already heard it twice today." She grinned. "But you didn't cry the second time." "I'm trying for 3. Vivian laughed, reaching across the table to squeeze Jonas's hand. Later, as they tucked Leah into bed, she looked up at both of them. "Are you staying?" she asked softly. Jonas looked to Vivian. She smiled. "Forever," she said. "Pinky promise?" Leah held out her finger. Jonas wrapped his pinky around hers. "Always." Leah yawned, eyes fluttering closed. "Okay, wake me up if there's pancakes tomorrow." Vivian kissed her forehead. "There will be." They turned off the lights, stepping into the warm quiet of the hallway. Jonas leaned against the wall, watching Vivian with a kind of peace he hadn't known he was capable of. "Never thought I'd end up here," he said. She smiled. "That makes 2 of us." "You regret it." Vivian took his hand. "I spent so many years chasing legacy and I almost missed the only one that mattered." He looked at their fingers intertwined. "She saved us," he whispered. "No," Vivian said gently. "You saved each other. I just finally showed up." They stood there a moment longer, the sounds of the quiet flat around them like a lullaby. Outside, the sky was clear. Stars shimmered above the city. Some old, some newly visible, some barely bright enough to see, but still there. A constellation, not perfect, but real and chosen. Sometimes family isn't about blood. It's about the people who show up when life gets messy and stay when it would be easier to walk away. Jonas, Vivian, and Leah remind us that second chances aren't just possible. They're powerful. And that healing often begins the moment someone dares to choose love over fear. What part of their journey touched your heart the most? And where in the world are you watching from? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Your words mean more than you know. If this story moved you, inspired you, or simply made you feel something, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next tale of love, hope, and redemption from Real Stories Diary. Thank you for spending your time with us today. Until next time, stay kind, stay open, and never stop believing in second chances.